Hi, I'm Phyllis from iSew, and welcome back to my channel. And today I want to dress this little doll, and I'm going to show you how to make her panties, or her bloomers. They're more like bloomers, these ones. And this is my pattern. So it was a little long. You can make it any length you like, but I just folded it up here, and I folded this edge in here because this is the size she needs. And it's a good idea to measure the distance from the waist to the crotch area, back and front, because often the back is longer than the front, but not necessarily, depending on the doll. And then I put this on place this on the fold of the fabric, and I cut it. When I cut it out, it looks like this. And then I sew my front seams together, and then I take and I serge along this edge and this edge, the leg, along the leg. But you can fold it in one turn and then put your elastic on, or you can turn it in twice. That's all up to you. And then I serge along the top edge as well, and I make a casing, and I run my elastic through. And then I go for my lace, and I put my right sides together, and I stitch it along here. And then turn it over. Now it depends on how I want to put my elastic in. If I want to make a casing to run my elastic along round on the legs, then I make my seam a little closer, a little further away, just room for my casing. Or if I just want to sew right along here and turn it over, and then I take my elastic, I'll use this piece, and I just sew it along here and just stretch it out. So it's however you want to sew your elastic. Everybody has their own special way of doing it, so that's the way I do it. So then this is another type of elastic I used on this pair, and I just stretched the elastic out and sewed it along the top. And that's nice elastic. I didn't have any of that for this one. And you can see how nice they fit. And then I make her little petticoat. Now the petticoat, I cut my front part out, and I've cut 2 for the back. And the back is a little bit wider, so it'll turn back like this. So I serged down here and just turned it over once. But you could easily turn it over twice. It's not a problem. And then I sew my shoulder seams together. Now, there's two ways I could have done it. I could have made two like this pieces and lined it and turned it right side out. But for the petticoats, I find that it's maybe a little bulky to have it lined. It depends on the fabric that you're using. But I just serged along the edges, or you could use a cover stitch, or you could turn them in. It's all up to you. But I find that just serging along the edge, it's a quick way to do it, especially if it's for play clothes and things like that. If you were going to have them judged or a special doll, then I would do it differently. I would definitely turn the edges in. And then when I get it all serged around, then I just turn it like this, sew up my side seams, and it's ready for the skirt part of this. Now, the skirt part, I like to, depending on the doll, of course, but if I'm making a full skirt, we're making a full skirt today, so we're talking about a full skirt. I like to wrap it around the tape, measure the widest part of the hip, and go 3 times that much. And for the petticoat, 2 or a little more, depending on how I'm doing it. So either once, twice the measurement plus maybe the third. But for the dress, definitely, well, could be the third too, depending on the fullness of the dress. And then I like to put some lace on it. It helps, if you've got a little stiffer lace, it helps give it extra fullness too. And then I serge along the edge and turn that in on both ends. And then I take my lace, and I like to have gathered lace for this, but you don't always have it. If you want it not as full, you just use plain lace, but I like to gather it. And this is gathered lace, and it has this binding on it. Well, I like to sew it on first and then take this off. And most times this comes off fairly easy. And if you can just get the right thread, it'll pull right off. And then I turn, after I take that binding off, I turn it over like this and stitch it all the way along here. Right, about an 1/8 of an inch in, all the way along. And then to gather my skirt, I like to measure the center, mark the center and the side seams, and just by putting a little crease in there, and the same for this side. And that's where the side seams of my bodice will go. But how I like to use 2 rows of a long basting stitch to gather this in. I know there's other ways of doing it. There's running a thread through your, along when you're serging and pull it in that way. Or you can zigzag and pull a thread through. I find they're a coarser gather, and for a doll, I like to use the two rows of stitching, but that's up to you. And then when I get this all gathered in, I take the center part of here and I mark it here, and I gather the stitches in to where the side mark is. And then, of course, this is sewn up, so then I gather it in. Now for a dress, this is twice the size of her hip measurement. 3 times I think I'm going to use for her dress. And this is what it looks like when it gets hopefully pressed. That's okay. And that's her little petticoat. Oh, and if you find that it's too large, sometimes I'm a little generous and I get them a little bit too big. So then I will just sew a tuck in here and press it open. And that will bring it in. And then when I make my dress, I make it adjust the size of my dress bodice so I don't have to put a tuck in it. And sometimes I'll put a little heart up here on the petticoat, and you can use domes or hook and loop tape, or you can put buttons on here, buttons and buttonholes, and I have done that too. So, and I'll get her hair fixed up yet. So be sure and check out my Etsy shop for my doll patterns. I have all sizes of them in here, so for different sized dolls. And be sure and subscribe, touch the bell to be notified, and thanks for watching. Bye now.